Yep.
Good. Okay. Welcome to our monthly commission meeting, March 15th, 2021. Thank you for everyone joining. As you can see today, looking out the back window, that's a very sunny day. It's a little deceiving because right now in Montague, it is 4 degrees. So hopefully we'll have a couple of more days like we did last week where we can lose some more snow and then we can start getting into maybe not quite rototilling our garden, but we can move on to spring. So looking forward to that. In your packets, emails from Katie, you have a proposed agenda for today. If there's no comments on it, do I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
I move.
I'll second.
Do I have a second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
It looks like everybody. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Thank you. Also, this morning, Katie had sent out the minutes for our January 25th Zoom meeting. Hopefully, everybody had an opportunity to peruse them. If there's any comments or questions on them, if not, do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes of January 25th?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It looks like everybody. So good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Kind of roll right into the chairman's report. Leona, thank you so much. I enjoyed your second of your 3-series webinar on OLARD. I just enjoyed it really thoroughly here. So thank you for doing that. And we're looking forward to the next episode, which is, it's not this week. When is it? Next week?
Next week, Wednesday.
Next week.
Yeah.
Very good. So kudos to you and your son. You did a great job on that.
He's
Also, if anybody had, go ahead.
really enjoying it.
Good.
He didn't know Grandpa, so he's really getting a lot out of it.
Good. That's really what it's about. So that's great. The heritage and the tradition. So. Also, we've kind of wrapped up the Tug Hill Tomorrow webinars. I think those were great. The last one we just did was really good. Turnout wasn't stellar, but I think any way you have an opportunity to preserve land on Tug Hill, it's a great thing. So thank you for Katie and to Linda for that, and all the presenters that held those webinars that really went over really well. Natalie and I both enjoyed those. Thank you.
Thank you. We were really lucky to get the presenters we did. And I know some people have watched them off YouTube afterwards, so that's all good.
Good, perfect, thank you. We got some good news. It looks like both the Assembly and the Senate proposed budgets have been released. And it looks like the Tug Hill Commission is in for the same funding. So yes, it looks like we're gonna be around. So that is definitely good news on that. For all of those that we're coming close again to that May 15th date, it's time for our annual financial disclosures for all commissioners. So I ask for all the commissioners prior to May 15th, log on to my.newyork.gov. Enter your user ID and also your password. If not, it's really easy to get a new one or if to get it updated. Once you get into the opening page, go down to about halfway down the page and click on JCOPE FDS, and that should bring you right into your own viewing of your own page. So it's really simple. You can cut and paste. You can do anything you want. But I ask if all commissioners can get that done by May 15th. That would be great. It looks like from a COVID standpoint, we've got the COVID-19 relief package was finalized last week. And from what I can see, it looks like most states and county governments are going to be kept whole from a loss of revenue standpoint. That's definitely good news. I think New York State stands to really win a lot there. So that is definitely definitely good news for us moving forward here. The only thing I can say is that, we were in a process of vaccine rollout. That's great. I have not received mine yet. I know Natalie just received her first dose. Of course, she's older than I am. Okay. But I'm anxiously awaiting the day that I can definitely get my first vaccine. What I guess what I'm asking everybody to please stay vigil, don't put your guard down. The news might show that we're making some pretty good strides when it comes to from the rollout of the vaccine to anywhere to the slowing of critical care, even down to the deaths that are associated with COVID. It is slowing, and we are heading in the right direction. But we really do need to stay focused on this. I definitely think what Texas and Florida is doing and opening up their states 100% is really at this time is really not prudent. But it unfortunately we'll find out 30, 60 days if that was a good or a bad decision on part of their governors. If you look at some of the small countries that immediately closed their borders down back in March of last year, like Israel, of course, they only have 9 million people, or even Jordan that has 10 million people. Those countries are back up open 100% because they were able to close their borders. They instituted a mask policy that everybody adhered to. And they really have not had any of the, some of the migrations of this, or the mutants that are coming out of COVID-19. So they're back open 100%. And how I know that is because we do business in the company I do, and their borders are open for shipping right now. So that's definitely good. Definitely hoping that we can definitely kind of stay focused on that, and hopefully we'll all be meeting very shortly here. With that, we do have a board meeting on April 19th, and that is scheduled to be in Central Square. Then on May 17th, we also have a scheduled meeting to be in Port Leyden. So I just wanted to see if what anyone's thoughts were about actually moving away from a virtual meeting for one or both of these next meetings to see if we can meet in person. Any comments, any thoughts on that?
One comment that I can offer is in anticipation of the April 19th Tug Hill Commission meeting, I checked with the Village of Central Square about the availability of their facility, the extent of being able to occupy their facility with current limits on separation distance and such, and whether they would be willing to open it for the commission meeting. And they considered it, and they got back to me. They are willing to consider it. As things stand currently, their meeting space could probably accommodate, I'm going to guess, upwards of 12 easily. And if the separation standards are eased somewhat, as they're talking about doing, we could accommodate more on the 19th. So the 19th, I just wanted to check in advance so that coming to this meeting, you'd know whether that was an option that was on the table, whether we could go to Central Square, whether we might have to consider an alternate venue of some kind. But at this point, the Village of Central Square village offices are excuse me, available and waiting to hear from us.
Thanks, Paul. Well, that's definitely good news. Anybody's thoughts? Any commissioners have any thoughts on actually meeting on April 19th in Central Square for that would be a year and a couple of months since we turned to this venue of virtual meetings. Any thoughts? Any comments?
I will be unavailable for any in-person meetings. I'm hoping that changes in June. I'll find out more, obviously.
Yes. Thanks, Tom.
I would anticipate that whatever we would do, we would add, it would be hybrid. We would have the option for remote as well.
Yep.
I'd certainly be in favor of a meeting in person. I think I'm probably pretty lucky. I have both of my shots, so.
I've had my shot, so I'm feeling safer.
I'll have my second one Sunday, so I'll be all set by then.
And I
Bill?
will be getting mine in April and May. I'm looking forward to the chance for that.
Yeah. Bill, what do you think?
I've had both mine. Next Friday, I'm at 2 weeks past, so I don't have a problem with that.
So are you all telling me that I'm the youngster on this board?
Yes, so.
Yeah.
Well, I got both my shots, but I'm sure Angie is in the same boat. We're on the front lines as emergency responders, so that bumped us into that category. So I got both my shots in, but that was why.
Okay, well, with that being noted, I think we could probably look towards an April meeting in Central Square. What do you think, Katie?
Well, I also have had both shots, given that I've been working at the vaccination clinic in Potsdam. So, you know, it sounds like the majority of the people that would need to be there for business are going to be safe.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Yeah. So for those of us that did have COVID, I will be the one that's sitting there wearing 2 masks, and I'll be using my spray disinfectant as mace. So,
Well, the good news, Jan, is I understand that those who have been vaccinated, it's not absolute proof against contracting COVID, but if anybody who's been vaccinated gets it, apparently they carry less of a viral load and therefore they're less communicable. So
correct.
even
correct.
Since you've been vaccinated, it makes you safer around people that haven't been. So that's good news as well.
Correct.
Well, maybe we should have Kate get a bubble and put around Jan for all our safety. A
Yeah.
large bubble.
I'll see if I can order one of those on Amazon.
Air holes, no air holes, just a bubble.
Can we get that approved through the budget, Katie?
It can be a COVID expense. I think.
Yeah,
you could.
exactly.
There's got to be room in the budget for that, but let's give it a try. That sounds good. I appreciate everybody's comments on that. So we will, God willing, we'll all be meeting except Tom. He'll be with us, virtually on April 19th in Central Square. Thanks so much for that. Last comment here is that with what's going on in Albany right now, just a couple of comments. We're hopeful that the budget will be approved on time. Good, bad, or indifferent. If these allegations of the governor are true, then I think there's no comments other than he's going to have to either step down or be impeached. That's pretty clear. But I will say this, is that in understanding what's going on at the governor's office here recently is that, his father, Andrew Cuomo's father, Mary Cuomo, took a pot shot at the commission back in the 80s, decided to zero it out. Through a lot of community support, we were able to get back included into that budget. And in 2011, Andrew Cuomo did the same thing, zeroed us out for the year, in essence, putting the commission out of business. Through a lot of hard work through our Council of Governments and a lot of council and our commissioners and just a lot of friends of Tug Hill and our stakeholders, our partners, we were able to get included in the budget again. One thing I've always been told about the Cuomo family is they're a firm believer in the Fifth Amendment. They will take a hard run on anyone. And they did. And if they lose, they remember that a long time. And that's really the history that we've seen. Mario Cuomo, after his shot at us, never came back and revisited it again. And Andrew Cuomo has not revisited since 2011. So whoever the next governor is going to be, just words of wisdom, will probably have to start all over again. And I think it's a task that we're all up to again, but just be aware of that. It's not, in today's environment, in today's budgeting environment, nothing is given anymore. So we're going to all have to continue to work hard. So that's my comments on that. With that, Katie, you want to jump into the executive director report?
Yes, thank you. Some administrative items at the last meeting. I shared our continuity of operations plan draft that we sent to Albany as one of the new requirements that all state agencies and local governments are having to do. And we're still waiting for the Albany approval on that. A lot of the agencies are much larger than us and have several unions to deal with through that planning process. We're pretty simple since we're all MCs and we're so small, but we are kind of still tied up with that review process. So we're just waiting to get that finalized. So, and we also have our return to work plan that we put into effect last June, following all the governor's office guidelines for getting staff back in the office at a reduced capacity. If you recall, in December, when infection rates started rising quite a bit, we pretty much all went back home, except for, you know, what was absolutely needed in the office. In our communities, in many cases, went totally virtual. We've been doing the Zoom meetings for them quite a bit. Things are starting to improve, as Jan mentioned, and our communities are starting to go back to many more in-person meetings. And I'm starting to feel like in April, we'll start getting staff back in the office, back at that 50% capacity, similar to what we were doing back in the summer and the early fall. And we're waiting to get guidance from Albany about how to actually, you know, get things back open again. It's a few months out. You know, we're not all eligible for vaccines yet, but we're monitoring all that. So just wanted to mention that in terms of operational here at the office. Another plan, you know, there's lots of paperwork I have to submit every year to Albany. One of the things we do every year is an internal controls plan to the Division of Budget to kind of say we have the internal checks and balances. So, you know, there's very little opportunity for any kind of misdeeds from the staff perspective in terms of money or any of the operations. We have to submit our plan and get it approved. And we just did get word last week, I think, that our internal control plan for 1920 was approved by Division of Budget. So just one of those things we do every year, but it's always good to get that seal of approval. Jan already mentioned that we're in both of the one house budgets, so that's good news. Those came out, I think, Saturday, which was part of the reason why I kind of waited to send materials to the commissioners. I just was looking for that confirmation. Regarding staffing, as you'll recall, when COVID started, we were right in the middle of a no-cog circuit rider search. We had already advertised, we were collecting resumes, I believe at the time, but everything shut down basically with some things coming out of Albany that there was a hard hiring freeze, and, you know, everything was crazy then. And so we really haven't pursued that anymore, other than we finished the interview process at the time. We had a preferred candidate, but everything was on hold. I have revived the conversations with our second floor contact to see if we can start moving that forward now. I thought it was time to start looking at that, and we got the green light to submit paperwork. So I have submitted all the required forms down there. Had to put a potential start date on those forms. So we put an April 1st date, knowing that it was probably, very optimistic, but you had to put something. Waiting to get finalization on that, but I think it really is important. That's been a weakness of ours this whole last year, was not having that full-time circuit rider in the Northern Oneida County Council of Governments. You know, it's harder to keep in touch with the communities without that full-time circuit rider. Jean's doing a great job coordinating. Our associates and staff is picking up a lot of slack, but we really need to have that on the ground presence. So stay tuned on that. Another item, you'll remember the book we did a couple of years ago with Nora Mesha and North Country Books. North Country Books actually went out of business earlier this year, kind of a COVID fatality, I think. It really hurt their business model when everything shut down. And so we've pulled back. We got all of our inventory that they were holding and distributing for us. And we've been kind of at a standstill as to marketing that book and getting it out into different venues for sale. Nora has taken up the reins and done some research, and there's a new company out of Lake Placid called Blue Line Book Exchange, and they're kind of picking up a lot of what North Country Books dropped. And they are interested in picking up our book for distribution. We've got to figure out some of the details, working with Nora and the Land Trust. Land Trust also has a North Country book that's needed to get out there. So I just wanted to let you all know that there's still books for sale. We're just having, some logistical issues with getting them out. We also need to get Amazon back in play. North Country Books was handling the Amazon listing, and that also needs to be taken care of. So working on that. We also, could continue the selling directly to venues if they want to have them for sale in their restaurants. With COVID, I wasn't pushing that obviously this last year. So a little bit about the book. You should have all gotten Headwaters in February, which is our annual report. It was purely electronic this year. We are still under DOB guidelines with no printing costs to be incurred. So that's a little unfortunate because it's nice to have some hard copies of that on hand to hand out when you're doing some meetings. Hopefully we can get some of those at a later date. But I think it looked really, really good. Gwen was doing that all remotely as far as the layout, and lots of staff were helping with the editing and writing. So always a big effort to get Headwaters out, and it's always a relief when it's out. So just wanted to point that one out. I just wanted to remind everyone that the community recognition program that we've been discussing for over a year now, we're going to release that. I took a look at that program again. In its original form, we were releasing it a little later in the year because our annual meeting's typically in November. This year with an October annual meeting, I thought we better make the timeline a little sooner so we have plenty of time to review submissions and meet as needed to make those decisions. So as it stands, and you'll see, and I think it was on your email, it would be an April 1st opening up for nominations, a June 1st deadline, which would give us the summer for the COG chairs and myself and Jan to review and come up with a recommendation. It would give us a September commission meeting to make any decisions as a group that we might need to make, and then have it awarded at the October commission meeting at the tailwater, keeping my fingers crossed. So just looking for maybe a final, nod on that. Everyone's comfortable with that. I'd also love a better name for it. It's very dry. So if you think of anything clever and fancy, I'd love to hear it, because I'm not thinking cleverly or fancily these days. Any thoughts on that? Everybody's good with it still?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well,
After last year, none of us are clever and thinking.
What's
Well,
it called now?
Right, you're right, Bill.
right now it's the
Bill,
Tug Hill
Bill,
Community
speak for yourself,
Recognition
Bill.
Program. Right now it's called the Tug Hill Community Recognition Program. Real explanatory, but not very fancy. You've got we had Tug Hill Sages, obviously. The Land Trust has a couple of awards they give out. One is the Top of the Hill Award, playing on the hill, and the person who it's named after. So, it would be nice to have something a little nicer, but
We'll think on it.
think
Yeah.
on it. You got a couple of weeks. Let me know.
You sprung
How
it,
about-
you sprung it. Go ahead.
How about the Tuggies?
I don't think so.
Instead of the
granny.
Emmys.
Tuggies?
Yeah.
Tuggies rhymes with Huggies. I don't know.
Nice try, Matt, but okay.
Yeah, I go for that, no.
Well, if anybody has a real great brainstorm, let me know. The last thing I'll report out on administrative is we had a really nice Cog Leaders Meeting at the end of February. We do this annually. Usually we're doing it in person and eating some good food. Obviously that was not on the agenda for this year, so we did it remotely. We had all of our 5 Cog chairs on there, all the circuit riders. Jan joined, Jean and Matt and I, and just had a good conversation. We updated them on all the things we've been doing this last year. We heard from them as to their priorities and their cogs. It was just a nice touch base meeting. I would say nothing earth shattering came out of it. The cogs are interested in supporting the minimum maintenance roads effort with a sign-on letter when the time is right. So that was one decision that they made. But other than that, it was just good to touch base and hopefully be doing that next year in person. Anybody that was on that Cog Leaders have anything else to know?
I think it was a really good meeting. You know, it's so often we kind of get it lost, and you know, we had so many things going on, and really from a recognition standpoint, we're here because of those 5 councils of government, and it was good to hear from them, and it was good to kind of give them an enterprise edition of what we're working on, because I think they were a little surprised on a few things that we talked about. So, so I think it was a good meeting.
Yeah, thank you. You know, we live this every day. So like everything we do as at least on the staff level, you know, is first and foremost in our minds because it's our bread and butter, and we put it in Tug Hill Times, we talk about it, but you know, you got to hear things a couple of times, and it's one thing if you read about it in passing, but would have somebody explaining to you what's going on, it is better, and more communication I've found is always better than less. So with that, we could switch gears. You all have a copy of the project list on your email, and we just did an update on that the last couple of weeks. We keep that up to date to kind of keep track of what we're all actively working on, and we archive projects when they're done or they've kind of dwindled. We bring them back if things resurge. So take a look at that, and anytime you want a specific update on a project, I know staff would be happy to give that. I've asked Carla specifically to talk a little bit about the archives project we've been working on and some thoughts we have for the future, because it's been something we've been doing during COVID, and it might have some real interesting benefits for our communities moving forward. So Carla, did you want to speak for a few minutes on that?
Sure. I made a few slides. Can you share?
Oh, yep. Let me let you share just a sec.
I hope this works. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. See if I can figure out how to advance the slides. There we go. All right. So this is the state of our current inactive record storage room. So about a year ago, we started meeting about what to do with this. Gwen was pulling her hair out. Basically, it had exceeded or nearly reached capacity. So we had begun to talk about options for that, including maybe the purchase of a new system, or maybe the use of a copier that would implement an electronic document management system. We started to cost out what it would entail to hire a consultant who specializes in scanning documents. So, so we were pricing that out and analyzing our issue, and we wrote up a scope of work and met on it a few more times, and determined that the approximate cost of putting this out there for a consultant to work on could be around $25,000. So anyway, so we thought we could tackle this ourselves. And again, the problems are lack of capacity. The room is, it's relatively small, but there is a backlog of records that have been in there since the formation of the commission. So a lot of reports that were critical to directing our program, beginning in 72, 74, 75, has a lot in it. And those we may consider to keep. Some of them, we consider them to be permanent records, but some of them we may determine we want to keep the hard copies too. So we've been working through those. to scan those, and I'll explain a little more about that in a minute. And there are some meeting minutes in there, a lot of financial stuff that can be disposed of later. But the bulk of our records are project files from like 94 to present, and many of those already exist in digital form, so it's going to be cleaning some of that up too. Project files are, we deem them permanent because, well, they're unique to us and we can do that, and they inform our ongoing work. So but they are eligible for destruction. So we'll take a look at that, and that all needs approval. I'll talk to that in a minute. But anyway, lack of capacity, right? So this is, and Jerry knows all of this from the years of writing records grants, but inactive record storage, active record storage is very, it's very specific. State Archives has some very specific guidelines on how we're to go about this, local governments as well as state agencies. So we had this backlog of inactive records that you saw in the pictures piling up, and that means that we can't get in there, we can't file the new records. They're piling up in boxes too. So that creates a situation where we have limited access. So you've got these really great historical records in there, and we, you know, who's going to spend a day to dig through them? And they're so interesting. And so I think that part of scanning these records is to make them more available to staff, to inform future decisions, to have historical data to build upon. Let's see. So if you've ever asked yourself, what is an inactive record? Well, like you would think it's just no longer referenced on a regular basis, and it's not active. It's not needed to conduct daily business. So records that are within the retention period or permanent records, like I mentioned, the reports, well, pretty much a lot of what we have we'll consider to be permanent. That are, if they're not eligible for purging yet, you'll find them in an inactive records room. So State Archives recommends that in a records room, you save a third for storage, for growth. So we do not have that. So we need to get to that point. You need to adhere to the LG1 records retention and disposition schedule. And that's for all local governments. And we have our own general retention and disposition schedule for state agencies. And that's a little less specific, but pretty much we need to work with state archives prior to destroying anything that's in there because it might have state significance. So, and that's all in our plan to do that. So in our records room, what types of records do we find there? Reports from the formation of the commission, like I said, minutes, financials, and the project files. So we cooked up this solution, basically probably before February last year, we began talking about all of this stuff. And like I said, the estimate about 25,000. And well, that's prohibitive, isn't it? So I had access to a scanner, and so I borrowed this thing, and I was going to bring it in and do a demo for the group and make a pitch that we buy one. But then COVID happened, right? So it's in my home office, and Gwen and I cooked up a system by which we would transport these boxes back and forth. And these are some old files. And so some of them are a little dirty, a little brittle, dusty. There's binders, staples, all of that stuff. Very time consuming to to take those apart. And Gwen did that, and she would drop them at my house, and I would scan them, and then they'd go back to the office. So this has been happening all last year, and I'm moving in a couple of weeks, so I'm in a hurry to get the rest of them done. And we still have more in the records room, but we're making very good progress. So my part in that is developing the naming convention and the file structure. And these are searchable PDFs that if you're in the cloud in our files and looking for something, it's going to pull these up. It will be. I think we'll enjoy having access to them. So some of the things that I just talked about. Why do this? Posterity. The first reason is improve the capacity of the storage room, and I mean, eventually we will be able to purge the unnecessary, especially the project files. Let's see. Oh, you know, I was thinking about this morning. I started at the commission in 2005, and I've been lucky to be able to work on these record management projects. And State Archives has the local government records management improvement fund, and it's often overlooked. You know, this little piece of what we do. It's to the benefit of local budgets, is to the benefit of the clerks, the record management officers. But in that 15 years, we've been awarded over $500,000 to our communities, and I think that's pretty cool, you know. So guess what? This is the on the left is the little unit I've been using. To the right, a purchase that we've just made. It's this is a pretty slick scanner that has you can lift that up, and you can scan books and older documents. What's really interesting is that through our travels, through my travels, setting up the projects, meeting with state archives out in the communities, there is the opportunity to work with them a little bit more. There are no consultants that do scanning in our area, but it is affordable. And sure, the record grants cover this, but it's quite a process of boxing and sending to Albany and all of that. And like we talked about, it's expensive. And the projects in the small communities are small, as you would expect. The volume is not, it doesn't warrant using a consultant. And so we've been talking about for some time having a piece of equipment that we might be able to share using an agreement, much like the GPS units. And we'd go out and meet with state archives, maybe not, develop a protocol, help them operationalize their projects, and facilitate them being able to do their small scanning projects. So we just started talking about this, but we're hoping to continue the conversations and get that off the ground beginning in August. And then also there's a component of it of, well, okay, what do you do with those digital records? Now, state archives doesn't require much more than migrating the data periodically from a disk or whatever, that's secondary to the project. But Elena in her travels has been asked many questions about storing electronic documents. So this is a part of the conversation that I haven't really gotten into too much. So we're going to collaborate on this and see if we can't come up with some real solutions for smaller scale, maybe a shared solution, maybe, I don't know, but it would be something cloud-based. It'd have to work with state archives because it's pretty structured as far as what you can do. But so that's what I have. Was there anything else you wanted me to talk about, or did I talk too much? I apologize.
No, that was perfect, Carla. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. And, this has come up, we started talking about this pre-COVID, but I think COVID has, again, like kind of shown a light on a need, like to have some more access to files remotely is better. And, sitting in on some of the meetings I've sat in on to do Zoom for different communities, there's talk about records and old records and where, how do we keep them safe? And so I really think this is a pretty timely thing that we're looking at. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it's important. I don't know how many times I've heard that we had to go back into the records to find something that happened in Osceola back in 1979.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we had those documents there. So I'm for this 100%. I'm also a big proponent in it. In the town of Montague, we were part of that $500,000. We were able to build a Sarah room, which and now encompasses a lot of records. Prior to that, people had free reign on those records, and a lot of documents came up missing prior to us building that room, which is fireproof and secure. I refer to that room as the John Woods Memorial Sarah Record Room / Sequester Room. John, for many years, was our judge in the town of Montague. And when he was holding court cases there, not too often, but when we held court cases, a lot of times the defending attorney basically wanted to sequester during one of the witnesses, and they would look at me and say, where are we going to sequester him? So we would lock him in the Sarah room, which was silent. So, we would kind of tease him and shut the lights off in there too. But I'm a big fan. Thanks, Carla. This is an extremely important topic. Thank you for what you're doing.
And I think anybody who has their office in their home, you get a buildup of records that sometimes you don't have a chance to go back and get rid of. But when somebody else takes your position, it's a lot easier if they're digitized or whatever to make that move a little easier.
Yep.
So I think this is great.
Well, and you might have noticed she said they're scannable, searchable. So searchable by keyword, so if you're looking for Osceola, you could, or the name of a family or whatever, it's going to take a lot less time to find it. So
A lot of work. And I know the cleanup, having done these projects in the past, just getting the records ready to be scannable. I mean, you find all kinds of residue on them.
For those of us who have been foiled, this would also be a great tool.
yeah,
True.
definitely.
You're right.
And Leona makes a comment in the chat about an intern, and we have talked about an intern. We were talking about a volunteer when this pre-COVID, and it obviously didn't work out, but I think you're right. We're moving forward, trying to find somebody who can help. You can set them up and have them do it. Makes a lot of sense. Once we can be back in person and not worry about things, definitely. All right, thanks a lot, Carla. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Carla. A lot of work for you.
Yes. Excellent job. Yeah.
When inspired the whole thing. So
Yes, it was.
Yep.
It was one of Gwen's wish list items for 2019 or 2020. I can't remember. So, yep.
Yeah, 2020, because that's when the pandemic, yeah, we were ready to get this thing going, and then boom, we were all sent home. Well, but Carla, she was great to pick up the ball and start it bouncing. And like she said, we cooked it up and it's been working. She's been doing a great job on it. So I appreciate it. Just goes to show you can find ways to get things done even when you're working remotely.
It was a good thing for us to be able to work on. It gave us something to get involved with for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, a few other project related things. We continue to talk about minimum maintenance roads. Tim Hunt, the Lewis County Highway Superintendent, joined us last month for or I'm sorry, in January for our commission meeting and has followed up with us since then. He's a pretty interesting guy, and I didn't realize this, but he used to be a town highway superintendent in the town of Cazenovia. And he was very involved with the Association of Town Highway Superintendents at the state level, and he was their legislative chair. So he's got a lot of background in dealing with, bills in Albany and working through that process. So we had a really good follow-up conversation with him on that. He's got some good ideas, thinking kind of outside the box, wanting to spin our whole roads this roads bill as a green roads, low carbon roads, use the terms of the day to try to engage people that otherwise might not be too interested. Lewis County is in the process of doing a greenhouse gas emissions inventory for the county, and Tim wants to include some calculation of greenhouse gas emissions related to low volume minimum maintenance roads versus a regular road, to try to make the case that we should be keeping these low volume because we're helping with the carbon issues we have. So it was a really good conversation. Right now, everyone in Albany is so focused on the budget and other things going on in Albany that we'll hopefully pick this up in April once some of this is behind us. But it continues to be on the radar screen. The Snowmobile economic impact study that we allocated $5,000 to support is going really well. The last I had heard from the Center for Community Studies, they've had over 2,000 responses to the survey, both the online version and the intercept surveys they've been doing on the trails at different locations on weekends throughout the month of February with the students. So they're pretty much wrapping up that part of the study, and then they'll turn over those results to Camoin 360, who will then run their economic impact analysis software on the numbers to figure out, what's the impact of snowmobiling on Tug Hill. So going really well. Renewable energy projects, just a quick review. We haven't talked about these maybe in a couple months. Roaring Brook is still under construction. Number 3 wind just got their notice to proceed with construction from the Public Service Commission on March 11th. So I imagine they are going to be hitting the ground running this construction season. Deer River has their certificate of environmental compatibility and public need, but they are currently working on implementing an aircraft detection lighting system, which I thought was interesting. I was looking at their documents on the Public Service Commission over the weekend, and they have an extension on some of their work through, I don't know exactly, they just got the extension at the beginning of March, so it probably gives them a couple more months to figure out what they're going to do with that system. Mad River potential wind project has been withdrawn for the time being, so that Public Service Commission case is closed, and we'll see, what the future brings.
Yay.
Switching to solar, Greens Corners is still in the process. I believe the town of Watertown just is finishing up, and Tom can update us on approving their zoning amendments. I know at least our part in that is finished. Maybe there's still an adoption process to finalize. Is that right, Tom?
It should have been adopted Thursday night. I have not had a chance to, obviously I couldn't go to the meeting, but Pam was off on Friday, so I will find out today what the final status is. But we believe they adopted it Thursday night.
Very good.
So
very good. So that solar project continues to move forward. The Office of Renewable Energy Siting finalized their regulations a week or two ago. And I saw online that there's already 3 projects that have hopped from Article 10 into the 94C, this new process. Greens Corners is not one of them, but we have heard from the developer that they will switch. So we're monitoring that as well.
they expect to do that application the 1st of April.
1st of April, okay. Alder Creek down in Jerry's neck of the woods is still in their public involvement program phase. They haven't submitted any more documents yet, but I do believe that Boonville is working on some zoning amendments in Forestport as well in response to that. We have had an increase in requests to present on solar in other parts of the state. We've developed a bit of a reputation, I believe, as we've got a lot of experience with this under our belt and continue to grow our experience. So Matt actually presented at a Cornell webinar last month, along with David Kay, talking about large scale solar as part of a webinar series they were putting on. Oswego County has just reached out to us to help with some presentations they want to do on solar in May. Jefferson County may be doing some more as well. So we're in high demand for that. We've also been asked to sit on a new NYSERDA Agricultural Technical Working Group. They are pulling people across the state together to really dive into this solar and ag issue that has really come to a head. So we met with them last week. I'm pretty certain that Matt's going to be our rep on that working group. So these are all good places for us to be, bringing our on the ground experience to the state to hopefully influence policy. That's really a lot of what we're about. My Climate Action Council stuff is still super busy. I have probably 3 or 4 meetings a week on this. Recommendations are going to start going to the council in April and May, and then it'll be up to the council which recommendations they forward on. So lots of work on renewable energy. And finally, our planning for offsite solar paper, we did finish significant updates to that last month. I have that up on the website, and I've been distributing that as requested. So
Katie,
that's all I have. Yep.
Katie, I think it's worth mentioning the magnitude of that update. I was impressed.
Yeah,
It's a big
it got a little
document.
ridiculous, but it's a significant update. The whole paper is like over 100 pages long because it has a lot of appendices, because we really are trying to provide examples to communities of different elements. So yeah, it was a lot of work. So thanks to Matt and Elena for that.
Yeah.
If I could just jump in here, Matt has been a huge help to both Boonville and Forestport. We were both working on solar laws. Last year, Boonville is encompassing theirs in their zoning. We're doing a standalone law in Forestport because we don't have zoning. And we'd gotten to the stage where we were both kind of just stuck. We thought we had covered most of the things, but we weren't quite sure that it was really, the finished document was what we wanted. Matt sat in on a couple of Zoom meetings, one in February and one in March. The one in February included the chairman for the Town of Boonville Planning Board. So since then, we've made huge progress. Forestport's zoning law was reviewed by our town attorney, and the town board will be looking at it this week. So that's, I think local government officials are just kind of overwhelmed by solar. And the magnitude of the project in Forestport and Boonville is so huge that we just are so afraid we're going to make a mistake. And we're looking at the law, just kind of thinking about that project rather than any others that'll come down the road. So Matt was a huge help in moving that forward for both of us. So.
And we're learning more every day about how to do this. So thanks to all the communities. And one quick thing I'll add is it's amazing that 90C process is supposedly takes a lot of the control from the local governments, but we are seeing that the solar developers are very, very concerned about what communities are putting in their laws. Their developers are definitely expecting to have the local laws be taken into account by the ORE board. So it's very important that the local governments, move the ball on this and update laws.
Yeah, and we had actually passed a moratorium last February regarding solar projects and thought that was going to give us lots of time to develop a law, and that moratorium is now run out. So, and actually the last couple of meetings we've had, representatives from Alder Creek Power or Alder Creek Solar have been listening, which is fine, but just you don't want them to know everything we don't know.
Right. Same with one of Watertown, the Boralex developer of Corners has been very concerned, very involved in what the town
Yeah.
of Watertown's been doing. So it's good. It's really good to get everybody's perspective on this. So I think it
Good.
helps.
One thing that's very important to remember for local municipalities when they create these laws that will impact directly the small projects within the town, but all they can do on a statewide basis for these large projects is serve as a guideline. And if those guidelines that are enacted in local law are totally unreasonable, there's probably little likelihood that the siting board will even consider them. So it's an obstacle that we all have to face to make those guidelines protective for the town, for the ag land, whatever, and still be reasonable when people who don't have that vested interest are reviewing it.
Good.
I think that's.
Thanks,
why you
Kate.
gotta
Thanks,
take-
Katie.
I think that's why you gotta take exemption to the real property law about the automatic exemption for those things. That's in the law itself where a local government can take exception to it. And that would put it back in the control of the local government because we are a home rule state and a law passed by the local government, as I read it, is the same standing as a law passed by the state legislature. So that's what this town did here. The towns I represent presently, I recommend to them to do the same thing.
So that's the end of my executive director report. Thanks, Jan.
Thanks, Katie. We'll move right on into the Council of Government reports. We have representation across the board. Who'd like to start?
I have to be rude and skip out for about 5 minutes. We've got a contractor outside I have to meet with. I'll be back shortly.
Okay, Tom.
Okay, Dan.
I can start.
Paul.
Well, I won't spend a lot of time, but a couple significant things happening in North Shore and Salmon Rivers. One is that the referendum took place in parish on whether to authorize the water district to proceed at a higher project cost. And that referendum was defeated. So it's up in the air right now how they're going to move forward. The town and village have a joint board meeting every quarter, and they had that meeting last Thursday, and they really didn't talk about it at the joint meeting, except to say that both the village board and the town board meet this week, and they were both expecting to take that up at their individual meetings and then possibly having another joint meeting after that to figure out what direction they're going in. It should be noted that the defeat of the referendum does not necessarily kill the water district. It does hamper their ability to conduct it at a higher funding level, which could, in a practical sense, slow it or kill it. But that's what they got to figure out now, is whether they can continue without that authorization, which they did not receive. So this week should have a couple interesting meetings. The other thing I wanted to pass along, two things I wanted to pass along. I was able to help one of my local highway superintendents, who's the president of the County Town Highway Superintendents Association. I was able to help him bring up a website for low or no cost, and I'm looking now at how I can translate the knowledge I gained from that process to other municipalities. I know I've been in touch with Leona about Osceola's needs and how what I learned might be able to help them, and I'll be doing some more work on that, talking with Leona this next week. But it went pretty well. What I was talking about doing, what I did for the County Town Highway Superintendents Association, is just bring up a very, very simple, basic website where they could do the minimum things they needed to do. In their case, they were primarily interested in posting notices like, when's the next meeting and stuff like that. So they didn't really need a big complex website to do that. And I'm getting the sense that what Leona is talking about is not much may not be much more complicated than that, but we probably need to talk further and talk about who on the Osceola level of things would be responsible for picking it up and carrying it forward after that, because as with the county association, I really don't want to take on the responsibility of maintaining their website. I just wanted to get them going with it and act as a little technical assistance if they ran into specific technical problems, but as an ongoing routine thing, no, that's outside of what I normally do. So I'll be in further touch with Leona this next week. The last thing I wanted to bring up is that we are taking baby steps in North Shore and Salmon Rivers towards having a contractor on board. We don't have an official agreement in place, but we have the basics established in terms of how we're doing with this. And I sent my circuit rider contractor, Vern Sundet, to the Orwell Town Board meeting last week. And I see Vern is on the session. If Vern wants to contribute his perspectives on the experience, I'd love to have him share that with the group. And if you don't, that's okay too, Vern. But I think it went well. I was happy to have Vern there. That was last Tuesday, and the problem with the Tuesdays, the second Tuesday of the month is my most problematic month. I normally have at least 3 meetings that night, and sometimes I've had 4 when there was a holiday on the second Monday of the month, and it pushed the Central Square Village Board meeting back a day to the second Tuesday. I've already got 3 meetings, and sometimes I can barely make 3. 4 is really out of the question. So having somebody like Vern to call on is invaluable. And I should mention that one of my existing town supervisors has said that he's not planning on running for re-election, but would be available to be considered as an additional contractor in the future. So that's good news, because he's a personable guy who I think who would do well at the job, and even better now that he's had some time under his belt as being a town supervisor. I think any town supervisor that wanted to serve in that role brings that additional dimension of experience and empathy to being a contractor. They obviously know that much more about what it means to be a supervisor and how a town operates. So that has been a really positive thing. So that's what I have to report for this month. Oh, and of course, April in Central Square. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Who's next?
I can go. I'll be fast.
Thanks, Angie.
My big news since last time you guys were together, I believe, is that the Village of Adams is locally approved to join CTHC. They're the last one that's mine. And so that puts us at 22 municipalities. My other big news, the Worth Lorraine Court consolidation is complete and signed. As you all know, both towns appointed the current judge, Judge Sheldon, to serve this year because the legislation wasn't signed until after election day. I have spoken to Judge Sheldon though, and he does not intend to run. So going forward into the first term of a real judge, they'll have a new judge. Regionally, my folks are working on updating their official roadmaps. We've finally finished the special area update, and we're working on getting the mini comp plans approved by the towns. And I don't have any news on a spring meeting yet. I'm hoping my executive committee meeting is going to meet this month and make a decision. So that's the highlights in my COG.
Any questions of Angie? Okay, we're down to Jean and Mickey. Who's next?
I can go. RACOG is at their next board meeting, which is actually tomorrow night at 6. We actually have the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Chief Officer coming to speak to the COG. And then RACOG's been working related to the Black River Trail. We've had the Metropolitan Planning Organization speak about extending the trail down into Carthage eventually. They're looking to extend out to Fort Drum. There's also a lot of activity happening related to Carthage to Lowville and what's going to happen there. I'm not sure, but at our next board meeting, RACOG may look at setting up a working group mainly for Black River, the railroad bed as well as the river, kind of like a Black River corridor working group, just to kind of help maybe keep things moving along. Clean energy communities has been a big topic with a lot of the communities now, and that's been coming up. Lewis County is doing a lot with that. So kind of been coordinating with them and ANCA related to that. And so we'll probably actually have Jen Perry come speak maybe at the April meeting here to Ray Cog about the grants and stuff. LED lighting continues to progress or move along here. Most communities have signed pretty much all their documents that they're supposed to. So that seems to be progressing right along. And then complete street projects. We had projects that BOCES was working on with their students. I got an update there, and it sounds like a lot of that will happen more as we approach spring and the students start working on their intern projects. So in Watertown, those will move forward there. Howard G. Sackett down here has already been working on some of the stuff for Copenhagen. So, probably one of the biggest news is that Town of Champion, Bruce Ferguson, is not running for re-election for supervisor. Right now, there's two contestants two that are looking to run, and that I know of right now, and that's Jonathan Schell and also Brian Peck. So those are the two that I know of that are looking to run for supervisor. The village and town of Lavelle, comprehensive plan continues to move along. Elena's doing a great job of that, and Matt's been there helping out too, and I think that's been moving along pretty well. And town of Wilna might be looking to submit for the Northern Border Regional Commission grant for their Herrings Park. They've had designs done already in the past, and they just didn't have the money to do anything. So that might be a possibility. I know we're gonna maybe meet and talk more on that here soon. Wilna also purchased a mobile data collecting license that is now part of our licensing for the Tug Hill Commission for the GS Cloud stuff. So they now have a designated license to them now for doing any mobile data collecting with GPS units out in the field. Village of Copenhagen, they're going to have their elections here, and they're all being contested. The mayor is up for re-election, as well as 2 board members, and each one of those positions are being contested. And at times, I think things have been kind of heated too. So, in some of the meetings. So we'll see what happens there. But I guess at the end of the day, no matter who gets elected, I see that this group still continues to move forward and work together, because despite their differences, maybe of opinions on how things should be done, at the end of the day, they usually do go and get things done and work together. So sometimes I think things get portrayed like they're dysfunctional down there, but they're not. They do get things done. Just sometimes there's different opinions, and it can get a little heated at times. But anyways, that's kind of a quick recap, I guess, of what we got going on here. Any question?
Thanks, Mickey. Jean?
Morning, everyone. I don't have too much to report. We did have a really nice meet and greet with staff and associates on March 5th at 3 o'clock. We went about an hour and a half, and I think everyone really enjoyed getting to know each other. I thought that was a really good meeting, and I think the associates would like to do it again, or at least NOCOG associates would like to do it again. I'm working with a small committee of the executive board on updating NOCOG bylaws. Hopefully I'll be meeting with them later this week. We're going to start up the GPS program again this spring, where Mark Clark left off last late summer, I should say. I have a call into him to find out what we need to do to get that up and running again. We'll probably announce in our April NOCOG announcements that Mark is working with the GPS units, and if any of the member communities are interested, please contact him. in the February announcements, we asked the NOCOG members to consider renewing the IMA. I've heard back from at least eight of the NOCOG members that they approved it. Last week was a big week of meetings. Have a couple more meetings this week, but I'm hoping that most, if not all, members approved it this month. I did get 3 resolutions back, one from Floyd, one from the village of Boonville, and one from Ava already, so that's good news. John Hilt and I met with Mary Kate from the Mohawk Valley Economic Development District. She is helping us put together a proposal for updating the NOCOG website. She has sent us some ideas on different platforms to use, different formats we could use. We need to get back to her and do a little more work on that. Hopefully we'll have a proposal for the executive board meeting in April, on April 15th, for the board to consider on which way to go on the NOCOG website. And lastly, the local government economic committee met on Friday, and I believe they're considering a session on the clean energy, what is it, clean energy communities. There's a representative that, or a person at the Mohawk Valley Economic Development District that is the coordinator of that program for Oneida County and I think Herkimer County. That'll be a good webinar to have later in the spring, because there's a lot going on there.
If I could just speak a little bit more to that.
Yep.
Excuse me. The person heading that works with one of the members of the local government education committee. And her name's Amanda. She had sent an email up to the commission. And we just wanted a little bit more information on it, a little bit more specifics, what kinds of projects, so that we could I think it would work better to get people on board with that. So she's going to sit in on our next meeting in April. So that would be helpful. Also, another thing we had talked about is one regarding siting solar projects. And maybe that's something we could have Matt do a presentation on in the future. And also going to do one regarding the Amish when things open up in the spring. So I don't know why, but I'm still the chairman of that committee. So
that's all I have, Jen. Thank you.
Good. Any questions? Any further questions for Jean or Jerry?
no.
Thank you. Let's move right into the finance report. Katie?
So you all have the financial statement on email. One correction that I didn't make I didn't realize before I sent it out. The unallocated should be 3,000 less, because we did allocate an additional 3,000 at the last meeting to some of the lodging costs that Elena and I have been incurring because of the COVID work we're doing in Potsdam. Felicia, did you want to highlight anything in there?
Sorry, I was just trying to find my unmute button. No, I don't think so. I just noted the few things in the budget notes that I thought needed to be noted. Unless anybody has any questions, I think our expenses have been pretty low this year.
And we are looking at, it was a very unusual year. We didn't know what was going to happen at the beginning. It's went better than we expected. So we are looking at making a few purchases before the end of the year, mostly technology related, to I'm trying to think through what is our training, what are our meetings going to look like post-COVID? What of this virtual Zoom environment's going to stay and what's going to go away. I don't think we're going to lose all of this. I think there's going to be an expectation, honestly, that we provide some more training, hybrid model, you know, where it's in person plus there's a Zoom component. So we're looking at some laptops or some projection equipment, something that's going to allow us to have good hybrid webinars. And I mean, it's challenging when you have people on the screen and people in person to have, so everyone can hear and everyone can participate equally. So we're going to meet actually tomorrow, some staff to try to imagine that and do some research before we make any purchases. I mean, they're not going to be huge purchases, but you know, since we do have some money left over here towards the end of the fiscal year, try to position ourselves for the future, whatever it may look like.
Katie, did we want to ask, how do we want to handle that? Since the end of the fiscal year is coming up shortly, and I
Yeah.
think we only allocated 1,000 in the computer equipment line. Do we want to ask?
Without knowing what that money amount looks like, I don't know how much to ask you to consider allocating for these purchases.
Lee raised his hand.
Lee, do you want to talk? You can unmute.
No, there was somebody in the other room, sorry.
Oh. I thought you were going to tell me what I was, no. So I don't know if
Katie, you could ask for a not to exceed amount.
Yeah.
Just to have it as a little envelope of spendable money. Although I have no clue and not sure you do what that amount should be, but at least that would give you the authorization if you need to spend it before you could get the commissioner's approval.
Yeah, and we do need to expend it before March 31st, so it would fall on this year's expense sheet.
Katie, I would say it definitely wouldn't be over 5,000.
Yeah, I was thinking 5 too.
Yeah.
So I guess if we could have an approval to not exceed a $5,000 amount to transfer from our unallocated to our whichever line needs to, whether it's a computer line or a equipment line.
I would just make a recommendation if $5,000 should be enough. Why not make the motion for 10,000 just to be safe?
Good idea, Tom. That's what I was going to suggest.
Yeah, so I'll make that motion for 10,000.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Great, thank you very much. All right, that's it.
Good. All right, at this point, any public comment? Anybody like to, any of the commission members, anybody that's in the meeting, anybody would like to make any public comments?
Well, I'll make one.
Any questions, any queries?
I've been asked to serve on the same committee, working group or committee that Matt is going to be representing the commission on for the Ag Working Group. And my role will be to represent a local government. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be quite interesting, quite entertaining, I'm sure, over the next year.
I'm glad you're going to be on that, Tom.
The other thing I would like to say is Katie forwarded a list of projects that was very extensive. When we look at that list, sometimes we tend to look at the number of projects and not the amount of time that people spend on each and every one of them. And I know Elena and Matt have spent inordinate amount of time working with the town of Watertown over the past year. So it's not only a lot of projects, but it's a lot of time spent on the individual projects. It's really a gargantuan task.
I'd like to thank the staff members that are helping out at SUNY Potsdam. We had our vaccines down at SUNY Poly in Utica, and it was manned mostly by state workers and members of the National Guard, and it couldn't have run any smoother. And I'd say probably the same thing at Potsdam. I think it's much easier to go there. You feel much safer than going to a store. I know the local pharmacies in Boonville are doing it, and there's a lot of congestion. They're not set up to do that. But I know when we went down to Utica, we were in and out in 40 minutes. And that's getting your shot, waiting the 15 minutes and out the door. So thanks for spending that extra time up in Potsdam.
Thank you, Jerry. I think Elaine and I have both really enjoyed doing it. It's amazing the stories you hear as people pass through your table in 15 minutes. People are very happy. People are nervous.
Oh, yeah.
People have had experiences, bad experiences over the past year. So it's been kind of a reality check for some of us, but it's good. Thank you.
Yeah, the hardest part was just navigating the website if you're not used to it. And, I've helped a few people, and there are some groups of people around that are helping others, but it can be pretty overwhelming at times. So,
I was able to help people in the library
yeah.
sign up, which was good. I had mine in Boonville at the Kinney Drugs.
Oh, good.
It was great. It wasn't crowded. They had everything all set up fine, and everything went well. I was glad I did it, and I'm glad it's over with.
Yeah. Now, when I went in there to pick up some meds for my sister, there was probably 10 people just waiting for shots. Besides the regular people getting prescriptions. So it was a little crowded there.
I didn't see that at all, but it was
Yeah,
good.
the Kenny's down this way is the same way. They got it pretty well organized. Of course, they also administer the regular flu shot. So they kind of set up and know what they're doing. So we don't see that congestion down here.
Yeah, at SUNY Poly, they could do 30 at a time. So, it was a big field house, but there were 30 stations. So there was a lot of people in and out.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Anybody from the public? Anyone else? Staff?
I just wanted to tell Leona, I tried to talk to her the one day, but I think you're in and out of your car, about the gentleman that called that was so thrilled about the logger series you're doing. Oh, he just loved it and wanted to share it with his friends. So yeah, that's a really great thing that you and Pete are doing.
Fiona, you're muted.
Thank you. It's been great for us.
And we do have some public here. We have Town of Worth, Town of Montague, Town of West Monroe, C2AE, and Elaine Davis. Is that Ed Davis perhaps? I'm not sure.
How could they?
Yes.
Hi, Ed.
Hi.
Okay, one more time. Any other comments, questions? Okay, very good. God willing, a year from now, we'll be back with our annual dinner, and hopefully with a whole lot of training in Watertown. So, something all to look forward to. That'd be good. That'd be great that we can get back on track with that again. With that, if there's nothing else, we'll be meeting in person and virtually next month at Central Square on April 19th at 10 a.m. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second.
Second. All in agreement?
Yes.
Yes. Aye.
Yeah, that's everybody. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you, Norm.
So long, everybody. Take care.
See you next
Bye,
month.
everyone.
Okay,
Have a
bye.
good day.
All right.
Stay well.